Hi, we're the Muppets, and today we're going to be talking about Flight, the 2012 movie by Robert Zemeckis. I'm Mars, and I use they, them pronouns.
I'm Melanie, and I use she, her pronouns.
I'm Kalani, and I use any pronouns.
I'm Evelyn, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm just going to give a brief summary of the movie before we go in, as I usually do. So, Flight, directed by Robert Zemeckis, as Mars mentioned, is about a commercial airline pilot named Whip Whitaker, is played by Denzel Washington, who we're going to be talking a lot about today. And he has a substance abuse problem that hasn't drastically affected his career yet. However, when a mechanical malfunction causes his plane to crash, although he's able to land remarkably well with only 6 lives lost, his addiction is exposed and he must come to terms with loss and his growing alcoholism and drug abuse. So, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking a lot about Denzel Washington today because we're focusing on star image. So just right off the bat, regarding Denzel Washington's star image, as we know, kind of from having seen we watched a Denzel Washington movie in this class, so we have seen that, and any prior experience we all have with Denzel Washington, he usually plays like the hero role in a lot of the movies that he's in, like the lead hero. So this is definitely a little bit different. So I don't know what kind of thoughts you guys might have about that and about how this star image role differed from his past. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say.
So I noticed that as well. Definitely different from what he is normally into, but I think that it contributed in the way that when Whip does bad things, you're like, oh, it's Denzel Washington though. Like it's subconscious, but there's always an underlying like ethos already established. Like there's a trust there because you recognize the face, and it's like, oh, but this is our buddy. Like he's gonna land the plane. I don't know. At least I felt that way about seeing him.
Yeah, and I feel like that was good for the character because that was also kind of his thought process through the whole thing. He was like, yeah, I have addiction issues, but I saved people. And like that's kind of like how the view, like that's kind of how I ended up watching it anyway. I was like, no, he shouldn't get in trouble. He saved these. Like he is a hero. Like even though like the whole like controversy. But
yeah, and like even at the end of the movie, I know I'm like already skipping right to the end of the movie, but even at the end, like he was given like a redemption. Like in prison, he was like, I'm clean now and my son wants to talk to me. And it's like I feel like that you are subconsciously rooting for him, even if you know that he's like done bad things and he continues to do bad things. You're like, oh, but like he did land the plane and he like at the end he was trying for his family, and it was like it still gave him that bit of like a little hero arc in there.
Yeah, especially with honestly one of the most like unforgivable parts of that movie for me and like watching him was when he went to his house and like saw his son, and like I was like, whoa. I was like, that was like a lot. So they definitely included the son at the end like on purpose because they knew that whole scene was so horrible to watch. So they were like, okay, so he's not addicted anymore, he's sober, but like he still did this really horrible thing to his family. So it was like, we're throwing the son in there, like here we go. And so like, yeah.
Do you guys think his character would have been irredeemable if he had not, like if he hadn't been like, it was me, I drank? Do you think if he had let her take the fall for that, how do you think the ending would have been different? And do you think he would have ever gotten clean, been with his family again, etc.?
I don't think so. I don't think that he would have been able to forgive himself. I think there would have been a lot of like mental issues after that. I think he would have drank more. I think he would have isolated himself because that seemed like a pattern he had. But I've talked a lot, so someone else.
No, yeah, I think that he I think he would have gotten away with it, and I just think he wouldn't have been able to get back on his life. And like anyone who like knew them would just be like, what? That's so terrible. Like the other flight attendant woman that he was like kind of close with, who had like a son. I don't remember her name.
Margaret?
What was her name? Was it Margaret?
Margaret.
Yeah.
Margaret?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Like she definitely knew it was him, and so like if she had seen that, I feel like it would have been like she wouldn't have been able to forgive him and he wouldn't have been able to forgive himself, and I just feel like it would have ended pretty poorly.
Yeah. I agree.
But they gave him that little redemption moment, which was interesting because I don't know how truthful that is.
I was gonna say the ending felt a little, I don't know, like idealistic, I guess, like the whole like all the people in jail like sitting around smiling and watching him talk.
Yeah.
And the sun comes and he's like, I need to write about someone.
Yeah,
It felt Hollywood. It felt like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say also tying that back into like star image and like who Denzel Washington is in this movie, I feel like you kind of can't film and have like a Denzel Washington like centric movie and kind of not have him end up being in like the okay at the end. Because if you're thinking about, I mean, I don't know if this is maybe a little bit too like delving into the idea of star image, but like just broadly thinking, like, sorry, I'm probably lagging right now. I apologize.
No, you're good. Keep going. Sorry.
Okay, I was just gonna say, because of who Denzel Washington is, and because like Hollywood wants to continue selling movies that have Denzel Washington as the lead role, and his like star image is him being a hero, I feel like you kind of have to make him the hero in the end of the movie in order to like continue that like capitalist cycle, kind of. I don't know if that is like true or not, or if I kind of just like made that up, but yeah.
And honestly, as I was like, what is the almost like, would the movie had been better question mark, because like at the end the movie like changed tones, like it was like I felt the whole thing was very like authentic, and like the plane crash was jarring, like that was like I had to like pause it and like look, like it really scared me. And then like as it kept going on, it was just very like gritty and real with displaying addiction and everything. And then at the end I was like, is this a different movie? I was like, it was very like, I don't want to say, I guess like soapy, I don't know, it was very,
it feels melodramatic,
happy ending. Heart and love.
I feel like they could have done it like even if he did go to jail and like even if he did confess, I feel like they could have done it where like he's in jail, and maybe like they could have ended it where he's like still struggling and like he's trying to get sober, but he's, you know, having issues with it. But like ending it with like all of the pictures on the wall where it's like oh, like Nicole visited him and like they had like a happy 1 year sober thing, and then his son is coming and he's made friends in prison, and it's like, what?
That's not how it ends for lots of people with addiction.
I know.
Yeah,
and especially
I was just
for
gonna say
him,
that.
who's like, he's like such an unlikable character, and it's like consistent because he's not like a good person. Mm-hmm. And so for him to just suddenly be a good person was really weird.
So I think that that's also like Denzel's star image coming in, where what Melanie said, if it had been someone else, would it have been a better movie? Well, not with that ending, because if it were anyone else, we would be like, that guy doesn't deserve an ending like that. I mean, even so, I was kind of like, that guy doesn't deserve an ending like that, but I was willing to let it slide. I felt conflicted about the ending.
Going off of like Denzel Washington also as a person, it's something that I noticed with like very contrasting with his character is that Denzel Washington, I was like kind of like looking him up a little bit before the movie because I don't know like a ton about him, but I was like, let's see what he's like. And so he's like he seems like a very religious person. Like he's been referred to as like a preacher, and like he donates to the church and goes to church a lot. And what was interesting in this movie is that his character was like one of the only non-religious characters, or one of the characters that like didn't believe in God. There was like a very central theme of like everyone be like, that was God's plan, like that was God's design, and he was like, that's dumb. And so like that was really like something that was stood out to me was I was like, oh, like that's completely opposite as him as a person, because he's very religious. So I wonder if like anyone has thoughts about that or anything. I don't know.
Well, I remember everyone laughed in that hospital scene where they were like, what did they say? They were like, pray with us.
Praise Jesus.
Praise Jesus, yeah. I forgot up until you said that the director is conservative.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That is very interesting now that I think of it, because this movie is very aggressively American and religious, like Jesus, beer, Coke, like paying for college tuition, American Hotel, all within the first like 1 minute of the movie. It felt very in your face. And so, yeah, I think that it's interesting that you brought up that he is also religious. I mean, Denzel Washington, when I say he, I wonder if that contributes to his taking on this role.
Yeah, and there was definitely like a reoccurring motif, I guess, of like they crashed into the church, and then there was that group that was praying, and then like they were like they come back here every day to pray, and just like, and then like the whole like God, like as you were saying, and even when that guy who had cancer, I forget his name, but in that staircase scene, he was talking about religion a lot and saying like, if you don't believe in God, you're I forget what the exact quote is, but I think he said a dumbass or something like that. Yeah. So like, just like that was definitely something that reoccurred. So to have Denzel Washington, who is known to the public as a really religious person, be less religious than the like obviously not mentally well person with cancer and like all these other crazy people, and it was like, okay, like that was definitely an interesting, not interesting, it was definitely an observable
observable.
That's a new one. Not heard that one.
Also, just going off of the fact that this director is conservative and like everything that you guys were saying with religion and all of that, I think it's interesting how Denzel Washington, who's like the lead hero character, is like a Black man in the movie, because something that I kind of noticed was like, if this situation happened in real life, like let's say this exact thing happened IRL, he like, I feel like one of the like, I feel like they would tie his race into what happened in some way, shape, or form, because like that's what our country does. And I think it's interesting that his race was never brought into question amidst all of it, because he's like an alcoholic drug addict who's also Black, and he like crashed this plane. And I feel like it's interesting to me because maybe, again, I could just be stretching, but like since this guy is like this director is probably like a conservative, like yay America kind of person, like the neglect of talking about race in the movie might be like on purpose, because he's like, we don't need to talk about race because America is not a racist country, and like we would never think that if it actually happened. But when like in reality, if this had all happened to a Black man, I think that the outcome would have been a lot different in real life. I just think that they would have been able to tear him down like so much easier because of his race. That's just like my opinion, but I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that. I think that's like interesting kind of.
Yeah.
And going off of that, oh sorry, Melon. Okay.
No, go
going
ahead.
off of that, like slightly different, but having also a Black man as like the lawyer who was doing kind of like sketchy things, or he's like, oh, I killed the toxicology report and I like got them to include like act of God as a reason, and like I'm just like, I know you did not great things, but I'm just trying to like hide it all. It felt like, I don't know if it was a conscious choice on the part of the director, but having like another Black character as like, again, someone who wasn't like, they didn't mention his race ever, but like he was also doing kind of weird things, and it was like, maybe we don't know if we trust him, and it's like, I don't know, that could have been, it felt a little weird to me.
Something with that character, what's his name again? Something I also noticed with him was at the end when they were in the hotel and Harlan was giving oh my god, with all that, all the drugs and stuff, he like needed help with something. I forget the exact detail of what he needed help with, but the boy Hugh, yes, immediately knew what to do when Charlie didn't. There was like a little moment where Charlie was like, what about? And he like took it from him and was like, oh, you need to like, so was that an indication that he had some sort of like past with drugs? And it was like a very quick moment. And I was like, and I don't know if that was again, like a like non-race, like a unconscious decision on race. But it was still like a very like, oh, Charlie the white man didn't know how to do this thing with drugs, but like Hugh immediately did, even though he's like a sophisticated high up lawyer. And it was like, okay, like it's a very yeah.
I definitely agree. I feel like regardless of like, I think the director deciding not to have them say anything about race is a very like, that's not nothing. That's not a nothing decision. That's very intentional and very like directed. And I also think that Melanie is right that there are implications like in that scene that are subliminal, and once again, maybe not like outwardly seems like a huge decision on the director's part, but I think that there's definitely some weird vibes in that sense. Yeah, trying to be like kind of undercover. I don't know. It felt weird.
Yeah.
Also, oh no, go ahead, Evelyn.
You can go first. It's okay, because I was gonna kind of change it, so you go.
Okay, just real quick. Just like Harling's character, the fact that like he is so obvious in everything he does, but he also like nobody ever faults him for it because he's just like this white guy who like walks around like he owns
I'm on the
place.
list.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
and
American.
he's just like, it's clearly like he's on drugs and he's like doing whatever and he's bringing the sketchy backpack everywhere. And everyone's like, yeah, like, all right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And just, yeah, I mean, obviously like that can happen in real life. And that was just something I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. I was just gonna kind of segue a little bit, like kind of what we're talking about with race and like everything that we were just saying. I keep like summarizing everything you guys said like before I speak. It's like everybody just heard what you said. But anyway, so I was just gonna say that I think something interesting with Star Image and Denzel Washington that also might have to do with the ending of the movie is like, I think that in Hollywood, I'm sure you guys can like agree, a lot of, I guess, like star image for POC like actors and actresses, like celebrities, is definitely like different than it is for like white actors and actresses. And I think a lot of the time like Black people get typecast as like gangsters or like, you know, that kind of stuff, or like not the lead roles or not like the hero roles. And I think that Denzel Washington is a good example of like a Black guy in Hollywood who like is the hero, because he's kind of like, he's like clean enough for like white people to like be okay with him, especially like if you think about what Kalani was saying about like his background with like religion and everything. Like he's kind of like the safe choice. I mean, obviously I don't know like tons and tons about Denzel Washington, so I could be wrong, but this is just kind of like my assumptions. And so I think also having the movie end with him like redeeming himself kind of is also in a way like one of Hollywood's ways of being like, see, Black people are accepted in Hollywood, and like they aren't always just like doomed to, you know, be thrown in prison for the rest of their lives, or they're not always just doomed to like have these horrible endings. Like they can have like kind of more happy, uplifting endings, because I feel like a lot of movies that are centered around Black people are about like slavery or something absolutely terrible that is happening in their lives. And like, you know, even if like the ending is kind of not super like upsetting, like the story in general is usually not great. It's usually pretty depressing. So I think that having the movie end the way it did is also kind of like a way that Hollywood is kind of like trying to be like, sometimes Black people have it okay, even though he's literally in prison. So like not really, but
I was about
it's
to
like,
say,
yeah,
saying that, like at the same time, it's also like prison is not a good place.
yeah,
And like having the lead go to prison at the end and him being Black is like, really? But like, although I will say the character deserves prison time,
yeah.
but
And it's also like they made prison seem so
sitting around in a circle and going out on the lawn.
You're not on subject a little, but they were like, I don't know, like it was very like clean. He had his own little room with his own little pictures, and it was just like,
Yeah.
oh. I was like, I don't think this is an accurate depiction.
It was definitely like being like, oh, like prison can save people. It's like, oh, okay,
That's
I
a
don't know about
very
that one.
weird message from the director too.
Yeah.
Very weird.
100%, I agree.
I see the timer in the corner. Do we do our very last fit check, or do we have anything else that we want to touch on?
Does anyone want to like wrap up anything?
I don't really have anything. That was kind of my finishing thought, but
Guys,
Yeah.
I feel like I got all my thoughts out.
okay. Do you guys want to do fit check?
Sure. Did you
Let's
guys
go on.
get fit checks in this movie?
I just came up with one.
I have
Me too.
one. Yeah.
Okay, good. Cool. Fit check.
Oh.
Should I go?
Check.
Go.
Yeah, you can go. You can go.
So my fit check was Nicole by default because she has a really cool spider tattoo on her arm, and I want a tattoo there, and I also want a spider tattoo, so that's cool. And I really liked her like purple mini dress that she was wearing like towards the beginning of the movie. Yeah, I thought she was cool.
Yeah. I really like Nicole as a character. We didn't talk a lot about her because we were talking Denzel Washington, but yeah, I really liked her character. My fit check is more for like a cute moment more than like, oh, I really like it. It was when she came out of the grocery store. She was like, yeah, I'm wearing an apron and or whatever she was, and she had her. I was just very proud of her in that moment, and I was like, yes, Nicole. And she was like, I know I look dorky or like whatever, and I was like, yes. I was just very proud of her, and I thought it was a really adorable fit check moment. Fit check, and yeah.
That was also my fit check. So thinking of another one. I liked. I'm trying to think. I can't remember exactly what it was, but when he went home to like his wife, I think she was wearing like a dress. I think it was a black dress. I might be wrong, but she just looked really good. I don't remember what she was wearing, but I thought she looked great.
Okay, fit check. Mine is very different than your guys a little bit. My fit check was actually Harlan Mays and his getup that he wore to the hotel and to the hospital. I think he's wearing the same thing, basically. Like the backpack and the sunglasses. I just thought it was funny. It was like, I don't know, you know, I was just like, that's his like, yeah. So that was mine. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
no, it's the last year.
Aw, don't cry.
I know.
Everybody, our 3 viewers on YouTube are gonna miss us so much.
We have
after we're
3?
gone.
Who else
Yeah.
is viewing this?
A few people view these guys.
He watches it 3 times.
Honestly, probably. Somebody commented on one of them, and I don't know if it was him, and I was like,
It's really funny.
I was like nervous. I was like, I don't know if this is a random person or if this is, I don't know. Reply in the email, Professor, if you were the one who commented on our YouTube video, and we can solve the mystery.
And if you weren't, then whoever commented on the first video, if you're watching, comment on this one and let us know who you are.
We have fans. We have fans. Okay, well, it's been so wonderful.
I've really enjoyed the videos. And
Yeah, me too.
We love this assignment. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.
Won't see you next
Bye.
week.
Bye.